I'm not gonna lie, if I had to read more of this book that I did read, I would not have read anything else for the month of August. I am once again going over a monthly wrap. It is finally not like a million degrees outside, so I do have my window open. I opened all my windows and turned my air conditioning off, finally. But you might see some like shifting lights. It's just the tapestry I have over the window. But getting into it, I didn't read basically almost anything I said I was going to read last month. And I'm wondering if that's like honestly why I got in a reading slump, because I wasn't planning on reading those books. And so I hadn't like, not necessarily like hyped myself up, but I do have, a set of books that I'm ready to read or ready to get into. And I think that's why I just wasn't as motivated last month. Did end up reading Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, Jellyfish Have No Ears by Adele Rosenfeld, and Nails and Eyes by Kaori Fujino. So we're just going to go ahead and start with Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green, and that is a nonfiction book, so that does go towards my nonfiction titles. I have 2 more left that I have to read this year. I remember absolutely loving John Green's books when I was younger. I think I read them when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15, and quit, you better stop. You're not allowed to look at this. Side note, you guys know how I just bought this light? So it was right after I finished like my stuff last week. I basically am not allowed to have cords in my house because someone will eat them. I'll show you her real quick. She's gonna be mad about it. This one, she will eat them. And not just like, I don't think she ingests them because I have taken her to the vet. And she's had x-rays. We've not found anything in there. But she will like chomp them up into little tiny pieces just scattered around the house. So I ended up having to buy a whole new fucking cord for this thing that was like a third of the price of the actual light that I bought. And she's even trying to go after this little thing right here. She loves these. I have to hide everything. I can't even have Christmas. No Christmas tree lights. She eats them. Last side note, I promise, I'm just in like a little silly goofy mood right now. I saw someone doing this, holding with their microphone. I thought that was so cute, and I get to like show off my collection a little bit in the videos. I think that's such a good idea. And so I am holding I Who Have Never Known Men in honor of the republishing of Orlando that's coming out later this month. I have already pre-ordered it because I have it like literally a reminder on my phone to tell me to go and get it. So that's going to be coming in at the end of this month, and I am going to be reading it immediately. But let's get started on the actual August monthly wrap. Okay, so John Green. I read the piss out of his books when I was younger, and I think my favorite one was like Looking for Alaska, but I barely remember it at this point because it's probably been like 10 years since I've read it. I borrowed both the audio and the ebook just in case one of them came in faster than the other. They came in at the same time, so I gave the audiobook up. I sent that to the next person as a little surprise. Basically, as the title suggests, this is a book about pretty much everything about tuberculosis. It is about how we have made tuberculosis basically like curable and easily treatable, and it is still destroying families and people who live in poor countries, and that is due to like racism and also pharmaceutical companies being able to basically set whatever kind of fucking prices they want on life-saving care and medicine, and so you're just shit out of luck if you don't have enough to pay for it. That is what this book is about. So it goes over like how tuberculosis used to be kind of like revered as like the writers or artists' malady, I guess, and how it was thought to have only affected like the wealthy white elite, and how people of color just could not contract it because they didn't have those qualities. His writing style is just so like easily digestible, and it's still so fun to read and so like conversational, but also delivers just so much information. I love John Green. I'm gonna look at his other nonfiction books. Like, he still has such humanity to it because it's also a personal story about him going and meeting people who have tuberculosis in like Africa, and how he's connected with one like particular boy. It's just absolutely jaw-dropping what people are having to go through and basically just deal with because their country isn't wealthy enough to pay for care. Like, they're having to use like old ways of diagnosing tuberculosis that's like, I guess, like 50% like correct. It's basically like spitting into something and then looking in it for like those specific bacteria, but it's only 50% effective because if you're not super contaminated, you can just miss it and then go undiagnosed and then keep spreading it around to other people around you without even knowing it, until it gets bad enough to where there's nothing they can do. And then not only that, they're not able to, I guess, test to see what kind of specific strain of tuberculosis you have. And so basically you're having to take like a whole bunch of pills and be sequestered off in a hospital where your family ostracizes you because you have a disease. There's just a lot that goes into it. I do not rate nonfiction, but I do very sincerely recommend this book. I didn't know anything about tuberculosis. I'm lucky enough to live somewhere where I don't have to worry about that because we have the cure and the treatment and the ability to access it. And he says multiple times in the book, the cure is not where the disease is. I am like not in awe because it's not good, but I am disgusted by how expensive life-saving care is in general. I don't know why we just allow people to die because they don't have enough money to take care of what they're needing. Like, it's putting a price on a person. Tangent over. I obviously am feeling very passionate about that right now. I'm gonna move on. I do really recommend that one. And I'm probably going to get a copy for my own shelf to support John Green. I finally got to read Project Hail Mary, and I know I've been talking about it for a couple of videos because I literally originally like put a hold on that book in February, and I got to read it in August, which that's what Libby is for. That's why I had it, so I didn't have to buy it. I'm a little unsure of how to rate it, which feels really weird considering how excited I was to get this book. Like, I was so hyped about it. I started it and realized that it really had kind of a similar narrative voice as like The Bone Hacker. And if you've been here for a minute, which there's 19 of you subscribed right now, and I am so excited about that. Thank you so much for being here. We're almost to 20. It just feels like so cool. Thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. But moving on. I will say it wasn't as bad as that one. Like, The Bone Hacker, it brought out like an actual like visceral reaction in me because I hated it so much. But it makes sense, and it's not like as awful as the other one. Like, it's bearable, doesn't cuss. He just says like darn and weird shit, and then like a huge twist happens and he's like, holy shit, and I'm like, yeah, I know that the fact that he's actually cussing is supposed to mean, like, it's big, but it was just kind of corny to me. But then again, it, like, also kind of makes sense because he's alone by himself in space on a suicide mission. But also, he's not up in space alone on a suicide mission the whole book. Like, so it does go between him in space and what he's doing to, like, save Earth, and then goes back and leads up to how he got there. Because when he wakes up in the book, he has amnesia, and he basically will meditate his memories back exactly when he needs them. So that's a very convenient way to reveal this to the reader. Which I just could see it. And also, it's because the narrative voice was how it was, which made it just, like, blatant for me, which was a little distracting, I will say. There is some sense to it because you're also watching his past self with him, so he is actively narrating the past to you also. I will add that part in. I think that's why it's a little more acceptable for me, but also that is entirely biased because it was not as bad as the Bone Hacker. He also, because he's narrating, is telling you these basic facts about the people around him, which is, like, the same fact over and over to be like, hey, recognize this person? Like, yes, because you told me their name in the sentence when you referred to them. But, like, specifically, so let me tell you a little bit of the plot. So the story is about this bacteria that is, like, eating the sun's heat or, like, energy, and it's dimming the sun, which will cause, like, catastrophic death to the world as a whole. And so there's, like, this ultra boss bitch, most powerful person ever, leading the quickest mission to, like, figure out what's going on and fix it as she can. And every time you see her, she's being bossy and bitchy and really kind of sketchy because she literally steals people from their jobs against their will to work on this because they're the best for it. And she's just allowed to do that by every world leader in the whole place. I was like, that's a little convenient. But they're like, we gotta save humanity. It's more important than, like, your stupid rules. Okay, yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's like a caricature, almost. Like, that's all you know about them. And so there's no, like, much depth or nuance or, you know, analysis of people and how they act in those kinds of situations. Like, they're very surface level characters. Like, they are there for the purpose of speaking what they're saying, and that is it. Another example. They have 2 different teams of 3 people. The first best and the second best, who can survive comas to get sent into space on a suicide mission. They're never allowed to be together. One of them is a Russian lady, and I don't remember exactly which part of the trio she was, but her whole thing was that she liked to drink. And so every time you saw her, a drink was referenced, and it, like, really insinuated that she was an alcoholic. And I just thought that was a choice. Because also, there is a Chinese man that is going on this trip, and he's, like, the first mission and not the backup. And he's, like, very stoic the whole time, but, like, she could get a laugh out of him. And you never see him laugh, like, almost ever. And so every time you see him, it's either pointed out that he's not laughing or, oh, he chuckled. And that's all you know. Because he's stoic. Which I also thought was a choice. It just stuck out to me. I've not read, like, any sci-fi. Like, I've read very bare minimum sci-fi. And so I felt like this one was, like, a sci-fi book that I was, like, aspiring to read. So do take this with, like, a grain of salt. Because I very much like character-driven and not necessarily focused stories, because I like a mixture. I like character-focused stories, and then also strong character plot-focused stories. This was just very obviously, like, just kind of like one-dimensional. Now, there are parts of it that I really did enjoy, you know, with the characters, but I can't really tell you about that one because it's a very big twist, and I don't want to give it away if you don't know anything about the book. I literally, which is like, I didn't read the synopsis of this book before reading it either. I saw it and I went, I liked watching The Martian. I want to read that. And so I read it. So it's like, I also did walk into it blind, but I like trying new books and I like figuring out what I like, and this just helps me figure out what I like. So I don't see that as a bad thing because I didn't hate the book either. Like, I gave it a very mid 3. Like, that was good. I did enjoy it. I did read the whole thing, but I thought if some things were different, it would have been better for my taste, which is not a crime. I do still want to read like other sci-fi books because I really do like, you know, the kind of like cosmic horror elements, and then also I do like the exploration and the like determination of humanity. That was fun. I liked the science in it. The one in Project Hail Mary, the science is very, very prevalent. You're literally in the brain of a science teacher who used to as like a doctor or something, I don't know, and like got laughed out of the science community for a stupid paper he wrote. He's literally just spouting off facts. I understood what was going on for the most part. Like, some of his conclusions, I was like, I don't know anything about that at all, but it makes sense. I did like this book. I just had a little bit of gripes, like a couple of gripes. So if you know any sci-fi books that are like very character heavy and very like, oh, I like speculative fiction, please let me know. I'm very interested in reading that kind of like vibey genre. I also got the self-help book, the one that's called The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I saw it in the bookstore and I went, ooh, you need to borrow that because you're probably not going to like it because you don't like self-help books. But I wanted to read it because I was like, I kind of like get what it means from, you know, the actual title. I kind of wanted to see what it said because a lot of people said it was really good to me. I got it from the library. Support the local library. I'm not gonna lie, if I had to read more of this book that I did read, I would not have read anything else for the month of August. It had like 5 introductions, felt like. It just kept saying the same fucking thing over and over and over and over. And I was like, I get it. You said that in the first introduction. Like, I understand. And then, after the 4th, here's what you're gonna learn in this book. I was like, I don't need to know anything else about this. And then not only that, but like, apparently, she also made like this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 theory. And she explains it a little bit in the thing. It's like, yes, I understand what this means. And then so there's like a whole foreword about her writing that book. And every time she references the 54321 theory, which is a lot, it says the 54321 theory over and over and over and over. And for me, that just like immediately numbers rip me out of the page. Especially when they're like between the dashes. Like, I just could not do it. I just could not do it. So I sent that one back immediately. I will not be reading it. I tried. I think I literally read it for like 3 days and I barely got anywhere. I couldn't do it. So after that, I moved on to Jellyfish Have No Ears by Adele Rosenfeld, and that work is translated from French. This is a story about a person who is hard of hearing in France who is losing more of her hearing, losing more of her hearing, and having to decide if she wants to get a cochlear implant or not, which is non-reversible and will completely change the way that she hears. And she doesn't know if she wants to let go of how she has always heard the world, even though it's slowly disappearing from her. And it is translated very beautifully. Like, it sounds very melodic. There is hallucinatory images in here, and then also she is explaining to you, like, visually how she hears things, or she's explaining to you how she can only hear on a certain frequency and how she attaches to people because she can hear them better than other people. And so I did enjoy, certain aspects of it, but I don't think it just really like worked for me. And I don't know if it was like a translation thing because it was written, very well. But sometimes like flowery language also just goes straight over my head. So like I also didn't feel like I was getting much out of it personally. The only things that happen is she gets a job and she gets a very caring hearing boyfriend and is being pushed to get the cochlear implant by the people around her who are hearing, while people who are completely deaf look down on her for being partly hearing and not immersing herself into the deaf community until she was an adult about to lose her hearing. And it just didn't feel like it was explored a lot to me because I felt like it was doing a lot of point making, if that makes sense. And the last thing I want to talk about is the hallucinatory images. So it is very unclear, especially with how it's written, if the images are being seen by more than just her or not. So it makes it very confusing on what's going on sometimes, because you'll expect someone to not see it because they hadn't seen it before, and then they see it, seemingly, or vice versa. And so it's just very unclear to me what was going on. I just didn't have a good time. But after that one, I read Nails and Eyes by Kaori Fujino. I also saw this book in my bookstore, and I took a picture of it and I borrowed it from the library instead of buying it, which is something that I'm planning on starting to do because I'm still getting the activity of walking around the store and looking at things that look interesting to me and considering the price. I had never read these authors before. I'm just now trying this type of genre, which is it was on the horror, which I've read horror, but I mean short story horror. I've never really read a lot of those. I'm very proud of myself. I got them from the library and it gave me the same ooh, new thing. I wanted this and now I have it, but I didn't have to pay for it. which I'm very privileged to have a library that just happens to have books that I want to read that are in stores. I will say, if you're in the US, you can apply for like a Seattle library card without having a Seattle address. It's like part of one of their programs. I would check out their website to see where to go and sign up for it. That is really helping me out too. Like that or Queer Liberation Library is another one. Take a look at it if you want more like free resources. And so this book, I'll put it on the screen. It drew me to it from the cover. I just thought that cover looked cool as fuck. The contact lenses are like so easily identifiable, but also so like minimalistic and like perfect on the cover. I just could not get over it, and so I was like very tempted to take it home. It was like $15. It was a very small book too, so that also gave me like a little bit of a pause. And so I am very proud of myself for using the library. The library is an amazing resource to use to get free reading, especially with the e-reader. Like my husband bought me my e-reader a couple of Christmases ago. I was a dumbass and didn't download the books before the cutoff to like download your books from your Kindle. So like I am very averse to buy any more ebooks, especially because you don't own them. So like just getting them from the library has been such a help. Just in so many ways. Just more than one way. Please consider it. Please consider using your library if you haven't. I'll get off my soapbox. So Nails and Eyes is like I wouldn't necessarily say like gore horror or anything. It's more of like an eerie sensation and disturbing imagery and uncertainty. It also did this really fun thing where like there's 3 stories in it. And the first story goes like, it's in second person. And so it's from the point of view, or it's being spoken by the young child whose mother had died, and her father brings in his mistress to live with them and replace her mother. And like she has a very deep insight onto what her stepmom is like thinking about and what she's doing, and it's like very intimate like thoughts as well. Referenced that the stepmom isn't very like able to see very well without her contact lenses, and there's just like weird imagery with the contact lenses. Like it was just so icky. I do think that was the best story out of the 3. Also, it is the longest one if I'm remembering correctly. I did enjoy that one. I liked the tension. I really liked the translation of it as well. I thought that it was very like intense, like the whole time. The second story, I was trying to figure out if it was connected to the first story in any way, and I think that was kind of distracting to me. But essentially that one is about a older woman who is in the hospital for some injuries and being treated. And it's not somewhere that she's like having to stay forever, but she is kind of like forced to be there like for her health. And it's alluded that she is being assaulted, but because she's old, she's losing her memory about it until it happens again. And it is very disturbing, but also is told in a way that is like the deep paranoia of being in that kind of situation also. So it just feels very like eerie because you are watching things around her, looking for like symbols or clues as to like who is doing this to her, and her attitude like suddenly changes at one person, but you're also watching her not even think about that when she's with her family or just not around that person. The third one, that one was my least favorite, honestly. That one is about a mom who is getting to go out with her friends on a rare night out, like just by herself, and her kid is like suddenly like very scared for her to leave and very scared that his dad is gone. And it just turns out that he got a curse from the from the playground, imaginary haunted rules, and so she has to leave early. And that's it. I don't really even know what more to say about that one, if there was any kind of like symbolism. Like, it kind of flew over my head, but I mean, like, I do get your mom, you don't get to go out, and that is, like, in itself a sort of horror, but it wasn't, I don't think it was trying to say that either. Like, the way that it's told, I don't think it's saying that. I don't think it's really saying anything rather than what the words are saying. So, I am sorry about that one, but I did enjoy the overall collection, so that's cool. So, those are the books that I read in August. This month, I have read This Skin Was Once Mine and Other Oddities, and then I have just started The Unwritten Rule by Samantha Hunt. This is her nonfiction book, which has been interesting so far. It like references like some of her other stories, which I've read in there, and I'm having a good time so far. I am glad that it's going toward my nonfiction, but I'm hoping that it doesn't keep putting me to sleep, because I have fallen asleep twice reading this, and I'm only in the first chapter. So we're gonna see how this one goes. If it does take me too long, which it's like, I checked, it's like 300 and something pages, and my Kindle said it's gonna take me 8 hours. And I do think it's because I am getting like lost in the words in there, and like, what does this mean? And there's just a lot of extra language. So, which is her thing, but it is nonfiction. So it's, I'm not gonna say not as interesting, because it is interesting, but it's not something that I would have just picked up. I am buddy reading. Anyway, we'll see how that one goes. Other than that, I am reading Scrap by Calla Henkel, and then I am gonna read Fourth Wing. My sister has said that Fourth Wing is basically required reading at this point. She's not gonna let me get away with it. She's literally given it to me. She's like, you have to come get this right now. Take me, officer. I'm gonna read it, and then I might read Little Women if I have time. But as always, we'll see how it goes in the next one. Thank you for being here with me. I really have been having a lot of fun making these, and I like watching myself get better, so I've been having a lot of fun too. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.